What's up? What's up? What's up? Friday the 13th guard. Sorry, we were a little late. We were slaughtering children at Crystal Lake guard. No, just kidding. How's it going today, Gavin?
Hey, what's up, guys? How's it going, Zach? I did not actually realize it was Friday the 13th until you said that, Zach. So that's pretty cool. Maybe I'll have to put on a horror film tonight. Either way, glad to be back here on the Vanguard with fixed up internet. Shouldn't have any internet issues today. Luckily, I was getting super frustrated by that on the last few streams coming at you guys from New Orleans. But yeah, updated that shit and it's good to go. So glad to be back in the saddle. Got a lot of fun stuff to talk about today. We have some Jimmy Dore Twitter drama to cover, but more importantly, woke M&Ms. That's the real scandal of the year, if you ask me.
A damn disgrace. This is the second time this year we've had to come after the Mars Corporation. Those wokesters over. I think Mars isn't that a British corporation? Actually, I think they're over in the UK. Anyway, they own M&Ms.
I know Mars bars are a UK thing. You can't buy them here, but they're pretty popular over across the pond.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if the company itself is owned over there, if you just can't buy Mars bars from Mars candy. But anyway. We digress. M&Ms have been on the woke list two times. Tucker Carlson has had to wake up in the morning and get outraged by what this candy company has done to our children. So we got to dive into that, of course. And then we have to talk about how the woke mob is coming for the last good things that we still all have in our kitchen. Of course, I'm talking about gas stoves. Next, it'll be cast iron. I swear to God, it will be. And when that day comes, you will hear from me again. But anyway.
Is cast iron? Is there something that's supposedly problematic or poisonous about cooking with cast iron?
I mean, not yet. But who the fuck knows what they'll find if they start looking into it? That's what I mean. We can't have that.
My mom always said that it was actually good to eat on cast iron because you get some of the iron, like it infuses into the food, like it increases your iron intake. So I don't know if that's accurate or not, but she's a smart lady, so I'm assuming it is.
She's also a food author, so I'm gonna stick with her on it. I also know she happens to have a gas stove in her home. So anyway, and also I was thinking about it, and I was like, Gavin, your mom would be the perfect litmus test for like whether or not this is something that we should, like, obviously this is all phony concern. We'll dive into it a little bit later. But I was like, if Gavin's mom gets rid of her gas stove, then maybe I'll consider it. But right now I'm thinking college educated, smart lady, knows a lot about food. I'm gonna weigh the odds and I'm gonna stay on that team. But anyway, shout out to everybody for tuning in. We got to shout out our patrons, and then we can move on to all the goodies we've got in store for you today.
Yeah, absolutely. Huge shout out to the patron community. Thank you guys so much for your support. As you guys know, we do like to start and end every single Vanguard live stream with a big old shout out to the patron community. We wouldn't be able to do the show without you guys, so we really appreciate your support. And if you're interested in helping us out, supporting the show, keeping us sustainable, then you can hit up that link in the description, patreon.com/the Vanguard channel. Really appreciate it. And a specific shout out to Cole Hamilton and to Katie for being our most recent Vanguard patron member. So huge shout out to you guys. Thanks so much for the support. And yeah, just a huge shout out to everyone supporting the show. Really appreciate it. We wouldn't be able to do it without you.
Yeah, absolutely. Holler at all of you guys. Links in the description if you want to help out. If not, just hit that like and subscribe button. You're all comrades in our heart, and we love you all just for listening. But onwards and upward. Gavin, what do you want to kickstart the show with? Do you want to get into a little bit of the jab drama about the vaccine injured? I'm just kidding, YouTube. That's not what we're going to be talking about. We love Big Pharma here at the Vanguard, right? No, but anyway, do you want to start with that, or do you want to get into the culture war first?
Honestly, it's your choice, bro. I'm good to talk about whatever.
In that case, let's just soldier on with the bread and butter of the Vanguard here. Let's get into the Twitter discourse, because I was scrolling through the feed, that's the old TL, the other day, and I came across this one, and I just think that I've been observing some interesting behavior from the Dore Meister recently, right? Like, he has really been on his self-pity bullshit for a while. Like, the dude has just been a sob story on fucking Twitter. Like, woe is me. Like, a couple of people were mean to me on Twitter. Like, oh my God. And then the other half of the time is him being like, you're a pussy. You're just upset people were mean to you on Twitter. It's like a very interesting dichotomy. So, like, anyway, we'll get to it all. We'll unpack it all. So anyway, Warren Gunnels tweets about Jonas Salk and the inventor of the polio vaccine. Could you patent the sun? It's a very famous line, right? Frederick Banting, inventor of insulin. Insulin does not belong to me and belongs to the world. Great quote. Moderna CEO, 400% price hike on COVID vaccine is consistent with the value. So honestly, at face value, no problem with this tweet at all right here. It's 100% correct. It actually shows how shameful and corrupting greed and pharmaceuticals are in the medical profession. Basically, most of the people that I've ever met that are in the medical profession, that are like doctors, caretakers, nurses, things like that, they actually do genuinely care about their patients. They actually do genuinely want to make the world a better place. And it's not like I know a bunch of pharmaceutical experts, but you would imagine that that's kind of a unifying experience, or kind of a unifying drive amongst all the people that enter the medical profession, or you would hope, right? That higher calling or whatever they talk about. Right. So it's like you would expect that would translate. It absolutely has not, right? Whatever ethic that existed with Jonas Salk and Frederick Banting was long carried away, and instead it was replaced by the ethos of a Martin Shkreli type figure, or in this case, Stéphane Bancel. Just like, oh, well, it's actually going to make us. If we raise the price so much that rich people will just pay an astronomical amount for it, it doesn't matter if less people buy it, because we're still making more off of this manufactured scarcity, right? Really, really corrupting, nefarious type of shit when you're talking about a life-saving vaccine or any kind of life-saving medication, whether that be like insulin or the AIDS medication from Martin Shkreli had the patent of for a while, any of that.
Absolutely. And if anyone's not aware, Warren Gunnels is the staff director for Senator Bernie Sanders. So he's one of the closest allies of Senator Sanders, just for some context. And yeah, I mean, this is a great tweet, right? There's nothing wrong with this tweet. He's basically pointing out that when it comes to life-saving medications and pharmaceuticals, such as insulin or the coronavirus vaccine, at one point there was an ideology, as you referenced, Zach, among guys like the inventor of insulin, that this doesn't exist to make me money. It exists to help people, right? And that has since been flipped on its head by the capitalist system we live in, and now people like the Moderna CEO feel like it's necessary to jack up the prices 400%, which is totally insane, despite the fact that pretty much everyone needs this vaccine.
It was publicly funded.
Right. It was publicly funded. Exactly. And this tweet basically acknowledges that these drugs are necessary. We're being price gouged for them. Because of the fact that they're necessary, these corporations and these CEOs feel that they can jack up the price and price gouge customers to the extent that they are, again, understanding how necessary these drugs are. So this tweet from Warren Gunnels is not a criticism of the drugs themselves. It's a criticism of capitalism, essentially, and one that most sane people would, of course, sign off on. However, Jimmy Dore didn't quite seem to read it that way. He says, "Good to see that it is now safe enough for mainstream political types to criticize big pharma again. Man, that took a really long time for these guys to find their balls, but welcome to the fight." And Jimmy got into a little bit of a spat with Matt Lech of the Majority Report and of Left Reckoning over this, and we'll get into that in a second. But off the bat, this is just such a kind of disingenuous take, because people like Warren Gunnels, who again is a close associate of Bernie Sanders and worked on his presidential campaigns, they've always had very aggressive criticisms of big pharma. I mean, you guys will remember one of Bernie Sanders' key issues on the stump was criticizing big pharma, specifically for exactly this issue, the fact that they price gouge customers for necessary life-saving drugs such as insulin. Again, there's always been an aggressive critique of big pharma and the rapacious capitalist nature of pharmaceutical drugs and the industry surrounding them. That's always been a part of the Bernie Sanders stump speech, and it's always been a consistent criticism of his allies, people like Warren Gunnels. So to say that they ever stopped criticizing big pharma just because they, were pro-vaccine is pretty ridiculous, in my opinion. Quite a stretch.
Yeah, so when I read this tweet, I remembered that Jimmy watched what is by definition the least subtle film ever made. It was called Don't Look Up. It was directed by Adam McKay and written by David Sirota. And he came away with the fact that that movie was about the jab, right? So this man isn't super bright, and he's even worse at like reading and picking up context clues, apparently. Because
And by the way, for anyone listening, Don't Look Up was very obviously about climate change, not the coronavirus.
yeah, like you'd have to have no brain cells. Like you could not speak English at all. Like I could have watched that movie in any number of languages and I still would have walked away with the fact that it was about climate change. It was so it beat your head over that. Leonardo DiCaprio goes full Annie Hall in one scene, just stares at the camera and starts pleading with us that we need to address climate. I mean, there's no mistaking what that movie is about. Okay, so that's the kind of analysis that you get. That's that kind of skeptical eye you get from Jimmy Dore, right? Of course not. He just reads his lines. But anyway, he completely misses the point here. And the broader point is, and what's so sad about Jimmy is that if he did want to have a thoughtful, thorough critique of big pharma, which many of us on the left maintained 100% throughout the entirety of the coronavirus, the real criticism was the fact that they were always going to use our taxpayer dollars like they always do to research and develop a drug. Of course, they were going to rush it. Yeah, they rushed it. Why? Because of the profit motive, right? That's why they're, and also because people were dying every single fucking day. So it was a balancing act of those two things. Now, would I have liked to have seen the balancing act be how can we treat as many as people as possible as fast as possible instead of having a profit motive in there? Of course, that's consistent with every left-wing criticism I've ever had in my entire life. And never once have I turned around and started simping for big pharma. How about the fact that big pharma is not providing these life-saving vaccines to the global south at an adequate rate, right? Why would these people be desperate for the vaccine, right? If it was all part of some global conspiracy to suppress and oppress them, right? Like that's just ridiculous, right? They're tired of seeing their grandma, grandpa, neighbors, cousins die of this vicious pandemic. Okay, so wait for him to just completely miss the point, and then also take the time to I'm convinced that most of his back problems just stem from the over congratulations that he's done for himself throughout his career, just like constantly like patting himself on the back. You should be careful about that, Jimmy. But yeah, it's just ridiculous that he has time to jerk himself off again here in a tweet that he completely misunderstands.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And again, like I'm also massively critical of the capitalistic nature of big pharma. But guess what? A couple hours ago, I popped a Tylenol. I had a headache coming on. The fact that I took a Tylenol does not make me any less of a fierce critic of big pharma. It's not even that I'm a critic of the products of big pharma often. I mean, yes, for sure, sometimes I am in the case of, the opiates and the Adderalls and all that kind of stuff. But just because you take a drug, just because you buy Tylenol or take a vaccine does not mean that all of a sudden you're simping for big pharma. Doesn't mean you're simping for Pfizer and Moderna. You can be just as ardent and fierce a critic of these companies and of their rapacious capitalist ideology, all the while acknowledging the usefulness of the products they create. And I mean, that's consistent with the criticism of capitalism in general. Of course, a lot of the products that are generated in a capitalist system are necessary. I mean, the laptop I'm streaming on right now was produced in unethical ways. And I'm, not, and I'm a critic of those methods. However, it's still a necessary product that I use, right? Two things can exist at once. You can both use a product and be critical of the capitalist system that produced it and the people that profited off of it in an unethical way. So that's pretty obvious to anyone with fucking two brain cells, but apparently not to Jimmy Dore. And Matt Lech actually went on to point this out. Again, Matt Lech, producer of The Majority Report, friend of the show, and overall a really smart guy, someone that I really enjoy. His presence on The Majority Report is very welcome. I've always talked about how since Michael Brooks passed away, haven't been as big of a fan of The Majority Report, not as avid of a listener as I once was. But I always enjoy hearing from Matt Lech when he chimes in on the show. And of course, he does a great job with David Griscom over on their other podcast, Left Reckoning, which I definitely urge you guys to check out. They have a lot of really good and substantive conversations over there. Either way, Matt Lech chimes in and says, the idea that Gunnels, etc., ever stopped criticizing pharma is ludicrous. Jimmy may have missed it because the real pharma criticism is e.g., as intellectual property and not the anti-vax bullshit he spouts at every chance. The object is to smear the left to pay a mortgage. Ooh, Matt Lech chose violence.
He kind of nails him right here, and this is exactly what we were talking about just a second ago, right? Like the idea that this is intellectual property that could be owned by a pharmaceutical company, right? That could be kept away from countries predominantly in the global south, right? That aren't able to pay the kind of going rate for the vaccination, certainly not in the large supply that it would be needed to adequately vaccinate their entire countries, right? And I think that, Matt really, finished it off with the idea the object is to smear the left to pay a mortgage. I mean, that's essentially what he's doing, right? We've seen across the board, there's been such an effort from people with Jimmy's type of politics to participate in playing a role in the realignment, right? Like pushing the narrative that like, oh, the Democrats are the censorious party, like the Republicans are the anti-war party. They're the anti-censorship party. And then Democrat bad, Democrat bad, Democrat bad, Democrat bad all the time. And then occasionally sprinkling in Republican good. And that's his whole model, right? And he'll be like, well, that's not what I believe. And it's like, of course not, because you're just playing the court jester for a bunch of other people, right? Your job is you're part of a balancing act that basically reinforces the belief system these people already had about liberals, right? Like they don't agree with you, but even this guy thinks it about the squad. Even he thinks they're frauds and sellouts and lizard people or whatever the hell kind of content he's making at this point.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, I got into a little bit of a Twitter spat over this. Jimmy Dore, well, Matt Lech follows this up with a tweet saying anti-vax bullshit, like the vaccine is causing mass instantaneous death or that it's more dangerous than not getting vaccinated is at cross purposes with demands to make it a public good. And then Jimmy Dore responded saying, I've been proven right about everything COVID, while you were pushing big pharma propaganda and smearing anyone who questions them as anti-vax, the laziest of smears. I get you have to make up things that I never said to discredit me because you've got nothing but blind hatred for me. And then lists a bunch of stuff that he got right, I guess. But I think
Claims
this is
to have gotten right.
Yeah, exactly. But again, I think this is pretty ridiculous to say that guys like Matt Lech were pushing big pharma propaganda for simply stating that vaccines work. Which is something that was entirely uncontroversial to say, 4 years ago. Remember how we used to all, unanimously mock anti-vaxxers on the left? To say that, oh, Tylenol works or a vaccine works. It's not doing propaganda for big pharma. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's weird. We didn't see all of that. There was no oh man, you want people to have insulin? What are you, just participating in the medicinal industrial complex, bro? Don't you know that's just machine washing big pharma's dollars and feeding it right back to them? Freaking gross, man. I can't believe you took that insulin. I can't believe you took that drug to save your life. What's the matter with you, bro? Don't you know? Didn't you think about that, bro? Don't you know that there's a 0.7% chance of X, Y, or Z, bro? Didn't you read about this one study that came out of, West, wherever the fuck is, bro? Didn't you check that out, bro? He's just trying to, it's weird because this is where Joe Rogan, bro science has gotten to us. But I agree. Even Joe Rogan, who was a big skeptic of the vaccine, just a few short years ago, had I can't remember the name of the doctor on. I can see his face though. He had a very unique aesthetic on to talk about how definitively vaccines did not cause autism. Because if you guys remember, before COVID, that was the extent of the debate, right? It was some wine moms, what's her face that married the dude from Coldplay? She was an actress, Gwyneth Paltrow. She was really into that shit.
Yeah.
Where it was oh yeah, vaccines cause autism. Just put this shit on your vagina from my website, The Goop. That was their whole pitch. Remember? Anyway, that was the kind of lane it was in, or the really radical. You probably just have a problem with autistic people, and you I don't know why you would choose to have your child die of some really painful illness as opposed to being autistic. But we also found no correlation, right? In all the medical studies that were done, there is no correlation between autism and vaccination. So anyway, that was the extent of it beforehand. And Jimmy would have rightfully referred to those people as insane. There was just an interesting open lane of people who were skeptical and decided to look for every single flaw and problem with the vaccine, and of course found them, and then accentuated this, and then made some up on top of all that.
Absolutely correct. And just to be honest, or just to be fair, like I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with being skeptical of pharmaceutical products. It's okay if you have reservations. Obviously, historically there are reasons to be skeptical of big pharma. I don't need to tell you guys that. And of course, we've always spoken out against anyone from Jimmy Dore to Joe Rogan, and any of these people being censored in any way. I think people should be allowed to be skeptical and even conspiratorial if they want to about these drugs, using their platforms, whether that's on Spotify, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. I believe in free speech. I believe in the rights of these commentators to have these opinions and to, question the official narrative. That being said, again, it doesn't make you a big pharma propagandist to say, hey, the science pretty clearly shows us that this vaccine protects people from hospitalization and death. Therefore, I'm going to take it. And if someone asks me, I will encourage them to take it as well for the betterment of society. Again, that doesn't make you a propagandist for big pharma. That doesn't make you a big pharma apologist any more than it does to take insulin or Tylenol or any other of the wide range of drugs offered by these pharmaceutical companies, which, yes, as Warren Gunnels points out, are incredibly rapacious in their capitalist nature. That is what we criticize, not usually the products themselves, which most people acknowledge are important and life-saving and necessary, which is why it's so fucked up that these companies price gouge customers to achieve access to them.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like if your critique is that the vaccine itself is nefarious or bad and you shouldn't take it, like, wouldn't you actually then be celebrating the price hike because fewer people will take it, right? And that's tight. Like, why would the aristocracy be saving the vaccine for themselves if it was somehow a way to control the poor? Like, I just don't understand where the logic goes from there. It's like, now do you no longer think that the price gouging is a problem because that limits the number of people that are getting #jabbed, right? And I don't know. Where does the logic go from here? That's what I wonder.
Right. It's very strange. And yeah, anyway, interesting discussion, interesting Twitter beef. Did get a couple super chats. Quickly wanted to address those. Shout out to you, Brian, for the 199. Does Jimmy support nationalizing big pharma? I'm actually not sure about that, Brian. Someone let us know in chat if you know. I wouldn't be surprised if he does. And that's the thing about Jimmy Dore, is that he still does have a decent amount of opinions that are correct. And that's what makes his that's what makes his commentary appealing, is because he always is going back to things that are true and that we agree with. But then we'll throw in some kind of wackadoo shit as well, which makes the content of his show far more questionable than if he just stuck to what's, obviously true and correct.
Yeah, I have no idea if he supports nationalizing big pharma, but I also wanted to throw up this tweet because it just shows where his priorities are at, right? Like, this random account doesn't allow people to retweet them, whatever. Is there and he just starts malding because he can't retweet or see these tweets.
And that's the People's City Council, which is a based anti-fascist, anti-police account from Los Angeles, which I think just recently started protecting their tweets to avoid harassment.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but it gets even better, Gavin. So he's going on this malding thing, and even people who are, probably normally pretty friendly to Dore, they're like, oh, it's a good account. Like, they just put themselves in protected mode, probably to avoid harassment, which also puts them in I can't retweet you mode, which means you can't amplify their message, which is what Twitter is all about. It's highly sus. No, it isn't sus. People sometimes lock their account if they're subjected to a ton of harassment. Yeah, they sound like pussies instead of radicals. So this is what Jimmy's spending his time doing. Meanwhile, he has no fucking idea because he doesn't plan his own show, guys. This is I can't tell you how many times Jimmy does not plan his own show. He has no idea what the fuck he's saying. He has none of his own opinions. He waits till he has good fucking takes from other people till he can fucking fumble them together and curate them for his audience in a very specific way that gets his message across. This is a person from the People's City Council, right? And then they're like, you literally spoke about our protests at the beginning of the pandemic, but okay, heads up, Jimmy Dore, we organized this. And it's like, okay, you literally have no politics at all. You have no idea what you're actually talking about. You don't care about the protests that you're covering on your own show. You don't care about the People's City Council. You don't care about any of these so-called radicals. What you care about is having good content for your YouTube show. And it would be better for everybody if you just stopped acting like a persecuted little twat and just admitted that to everybody. Like, no, I'm a jack-off comedian, right? And what do you mean by jack-off comedian is, instead of having a stage where I perform, I just put up a little booth where people in their MAGA caps can come on, and I'm going to tell them about how terrible the Democrats are while I work my fists really fucking hard. And it's all a big joke. That's jack-off comedy, LOL.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. And yeah, the People's City Council, they do great work. I definitely recommend you guys follow them on Twitter if you're able to. I know they might have temporarily prevented people from following them to avoid harassment right now, but either way, yeah, completely ridiculous. And shout out to you, Bruce Stevens, for the 199 alternative medicine for all. Right. Yeah, I mean, of course, a big part of the point of Medicare for all and the movement to nationalize these pharmaceutical industries is the acknowledgement that the products they create oftentimes are necessary and life-saving, the COVID vaccine included.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're welcome to all the alternative medicine that you would like, Bruce. That I would never ever stop somebody from practicing alternative medicine if that was their choice. But for me, I'm gonna go with the science that saves people's lives. So that would be me. But of course, like if you want to,
I think his tweet his comment is kind of sarcastic, by the way.
Oh, gotcha. Well, no, that's fine. I mean, I'm just saying, if anybody listening is like a person that practices alternative medicine, I'm not judging that at all. I just don't think it's fair to say you're big pharma, and not that Bruce is implying this, just to like run with the point, right? Like you can be, anti big pharma and still accept their medication is kind of the broader point that I feel like we've been making.
Exactly. Shout out to you, Bruce. Really appreciate that. And shout out to you, Brian Frederick, for the $4.99. There has long been an anti-vax faction on the left and the right. I'm not sure which group Jimmy Dore is pandering to. Yeah, I mean, that's fair to say, Brian. Like Zach was just pointing out, a lot of these kind of like new age spiritual types that are into alternative medicine, they're not right wingers. They're more into, like I said, the new spiritual movement, stuff like that. And there's long been factions of anti-vax folks that would be in that category. Either way, whichever or whoever Jimmy Dore is pandering to, it's pretty obvious that he's pandering.
Yeah, I would bet my bottom dollar that it leans right wing but that's only because the folks in my life,
at least on YouTube.
Yeah, on YouTube for sure. And because the folks in my life that I know that, and it's true you brought that up, there are some like more hippie people that aren't into vaccines, and it's true I do have somebody in my mind that I remember now, was before all of the COVID stuff, like not super pro-vax, but not also like in the like autism camp, right? And it's more, it does come from like that like hippie or kind of like natural plant-based like yoga kind of like free spirited stuff, and I just don't see I don't know if I necessarily see that world meshing with the like abrasive like harshness of Jimmy's comedy style, but perhaps there is some overlap there.
Correct. Thank you so much, Brian. Really appreciate that. Before we get into our next story, just a few more super chats to shout out. Shout out to you, Tony D, for the $5. Jimmy is so shameless in how he flipped his views. M&Ms are made via child slavery. Yeah, that's actually correct, Tony. It's pretty disgraceful how much slave labor, including child slave labor, goes into a lot of the products we consume here in America. And you're absolutely correct that the Mars Candy Company, as well as Nestle, have long used slave labor in Africa in order to produce the chocolate that we consume here in America and in other parts of the developed world. So we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into this M&Ms story. But you're correct to point that out, Tony. And it's always wild because here in America, we talk about the Civil War and we talk about the legacy of American slavery. And we always pretend like we're so far from that, like we've evolved so much and that we've come so far and that, of course, that's behind us. But the reality is you can walk down the street to 7-Eleven and you can buy a product that was made by slave labor, just not domestically outsourced to other countries, which are still developing. So it's pretty crazy that goes on and how few people know or care about it. But you're 100% to point that out, Tony.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, it reminds me even of, Nestle, which is another, they own a bunch of chocolate fields. They do the same thing. They also are trying to make water like a fucking scarce commodity that they entirely own. That was like, there's a really like horrifying leaked audio footage of the former CEO of Nestle being like, water is a commodity. It's not a human right. Like, this is ridiculous. Anyway, these guys that run these corporations, they are as nefarious as they come. They are like fucking hard boiled, like black and white numbers and cents on a spreadsheet, and we don't care what kind of suffering we impose. It's really horrifying.
Absolutely. So shout out to you, Tony. Really appreciate that. And we got one more super chat from Dell0373. Really appreciate the $4.99, man. You need Dore stories for views, just like the Majority Report. You need him, LOL. Well, the funny thing is, Dell, we talk about and roast the Majority Report and their content all the time as well. Same with TYT and pretty much any of the main YouTube channels and YouTube commentators that we kind of exist in the same space as. So whenever anyone has a dumb take, we're going to be here to roast it, man. And yeah, we need all of them, not just Jimmy Dore. A big part of our show is reacting to and roasting the commentary of other commentators, bigger commentators than us. And again, that is far from limited to just Jimmy Dore.
Yeah, dude, I don't know if you know this is, or if you think this is a cell phone. That's like the entire like theory and premise of our show, bro. Like if you read about us, they'll be like, these guys react to content and roast it. We're like, you know, the much, much, much less successful fringe left version of H3 podcast when it was like first getting going, right? Like that's where I like to think of us as. Like I always call us as a joke. Like if after all of you left YouTube had been a parade for the day, Gavin and I come as the shit shovelers at the very end to just like, you know, shovel up the scraps and the shit that was left behind from everybody else. But yeah, that's not really a gotcha, Del. That'd be like going on to a sports show and be like, you know what, guys, you couldn't even exist to talk shit on your sports team if there wasn't no sports team. And it's like, well, yeah, that's true, but there is a sports team, and that's why I'm pissed about how fucking poorly they've performed.
Exactly. Appreciate the super chat regardless, bro. Thanks for the $5. And do you want to segue into M&Ms or gas stoves? Which one are you more incensed about, Zach?
I'm more incensed about the gas stove, but let's let it simmer because I might just blow over the top if we. No, I'm kidding. But we can get into the woke M&Ms. I know you're excited to talk about this story.
Absolutely. Also, shout out to you, Bruce, once again for the $1.99. The inventor of the Mars bars is buried in Minnesota. Hashtag TMYK.
The more you know.
Oh, the more you know. I was like, thank you very much. No, I couldn't figure out what it. Anyway, thank you so much, Bruce. And yeah, we were just talking. I don't know if we were live already, but we were talking about how the Mars bar, for whatever reason, is a very popular candy bar in the UK, but for some reason has never caught on here in the States.
It's because you can't call it a Mars bar, you know. Oh yeah, I'll just have a couple of Mars bars, you know. If you're sounding a little British. Oh yeah, Mars bar.
Anyway, yeah, shout out for the super chat, Bruce. Thanks for letting us know about that. I had no idea. But yeah, let's segue into M&Ms. All right, you guys might remember this clip, one of my very favorite of all time, and one that I honestly cannot believe exists to this day. This was from less than a year ago. Truly one of the funniest things to ever be aired on Fox News, maybe cable television, period.
The green M&M, you will notice, is no longer wearing sexy boots. Now she's wearing sensible sneakers. Why the change? Well, according to M&M's, quote, we all win when we see more women in leading roles because leading women do not wear sexy boots. Leading women wear frumpy shoes. The frumpier, the better. That's the rule. The other big change is that the brown M&M has, quote, transitioned from high stilettos to lower block heels. Also less sexy. That's progress. M&Ms will not be satisfied until every last cartoon character is deeply unappealing and totally androgynous. Until the moment you wouldn't want to have a drink with any one of them. That's the goal. When you're totally turned off, we've achieved equity. They've won. The green M&M.
So yeah, of all the things to be outraged by, Tucker Carlson has made it his pet issue to mauled about the increasingly androgynous and unsexy nature of the M&M characters, the cartoon M&M characters. And by the way, I don't know about you, but I've always thought that heels were... I've never been a big fan of heels. Like, I would rather someone wear sneakers. I think that's cuter than heels. So I don't necessarily see how this specific change from the heels to the tennis shoes makes the M&M less sexy. But that's just me. You know, that's just a personal preference. Tucker,
it's all about the male gaze anyway, huh, Gavin? Oh, you want the shoes. He wants the high shoes. Yeah, it's never about the women. Jesus Christ. I'm with you, girls. I feel you.
Anyway, it just looks more casual, you know, more approachable. Stilettos are so professional. Anyway, you know, Tucker's clearly mad about the fact that the cartoon M&Ms don't turn him on as much as they used to. And he's back at it because, as you guys might have heard, the right wing is in a tizzy about some more recent changes to the cartoon M&Ms on the woke packaging. As this article reads, the candy brand unveiled an all-female lineup on its new limited edition candy package. If there's a candy company that many on the right love to hate, It's M&Ms. Currently under the fourth largest privately held company in the US, the Mars brand has been a part of American food culture for more than 70 years. Consumers don't just love the small candy-coated chocolates themselves. Many also know and love the iconic characters assigned to each color: thoughtful blue, neurotic orange, and sassy green. And by the way, I just wanted to say the M&M, brand has done a brilliant job with marketing, because if you guys weren't aware, M&Ms are literally just fucking chocolate. There's nothing else about them that makes them special as a candy. They're literally just bite-sized pieces of chocolate, but thanks to their colorful marketing and the different characters associated with the different colors of M&Ms, they've somehow tricked people into thinking that they're more than that. But in reality, they are literally just fucking chocolate. It's the least exciting, least creative candy you could possibly purchase. But again, thanks to their marketing, thanks to these cartoon characters, people somehow think it's more than that. Worth noting, either way. Like I said, conservatives are up in arms about this. A year ago, M&Ms listened to longstanding criticism about how the two female characters were obviously sexualized. In older advertisement, green and brown were sometimes presented as competing for the male M&Ms, while green would strike sexy poses. And of course, most normal people didn't care at all or even notice at all when these changes occurred. Right? Who fucking cares what shoes the green M&M wears, or to what extent the green or brown M&Ms are sexualized. But this totally harmless change was, of course, massively hyped up by conservatives and, made into a culture war for no apparent reason. And now they're at it again, thanks to this new packaging featuring all female M&Ms. Tucker Carlson back at it with another segment devoting some of his precious airtime once again to this complete non-issue. As this user on Twitter noted, this is unbelievably funny, genuinely no notes. Let's take a listen to Tucker's recent commentary.
Woke M&Ms have returned. The green M&M got her boots back, but apparently is now a lesbian, maybe. And there's also a plus-sized, obese purple M&M. So we're going to cover that, of course, because that's what we do. Woke M&M.
Because that's what we do. Also, I like how he was complaining about the green M&M not being sexualized enough, but now he's complaining about it apparently being a lesbian, like as if those things are mutually exclusive. Either way, the obese purple M&M and the lesbian
M&M.
Yeah, and I guess the purple one is the latest addition to the lineup. This is actually a new M&M. But as my girlfriend pointed out to me the other day when we were talking about this, it's no more obese than the depiction of the yellow M&M. You guys might know that the yellow M&M has the exact same body shape as depicted in the cartoon form as this new purple one, but I guess this one's somehow obese, whereas that one's not.
Because it's a woman.
Yeah, because it's a woman. Anyway, let's take a listen to this one more time just because it's so funny.
Woke M&Ms have returned. The green M&M got her boots back, but apparently is now a lesbian, maybe. And there's also a plus-sized, obese purple M&M. So we're going to cover that, of course, because that's what we do. Woke.
Love the admission there at the end. That's what we do. Yeah, you fucking monger fear over dumb culture war issues like the fucking M&M cartoon characters.
Yeah, really, really low-hanging fruit, and really revealing his own personal taste. He likes high heels, but he's not man enough for a wagon. I see how it is. Tucker. You're giving away the game here. You're giving away the game. He's the kind of guy that likes to jerk off in his own room to some animated chocolates. I get it. That's fine. That's fine. You're rich. You can. That's something you can do, and people will forgive you for it.
Exactly. So I do find this pretty hilarious. Again, people on the right love to act as if everyone on the left is an SJW and everyone on the left is obsessed with identity politics and always embroiled in these manufactured culture wars. But in reality, this is the kind of rhetoric that's mainstream on the right wing. It's really not the left that's obsessed with identity politics. It's the right. They're obsessed with the fucking identity of M&Ms. They lose their shit when a black person shows up in a Star Wars movie, or a fucking, wrong person of the wrong race plays someone in a fucking, Buzz Lightyear movie. It's crazy. There truly are the culture warriors. And here's another hilarious clip from Nick Adams on Twitter. I honestly don't know if this guy is satirical, Zach. I can never tell.
As far as I can tell, I'm almost 100% sure it's a satire account. He has completely committed to the bit, but just because of the way that it's done and how on the nose it is, like if it's not he's even less self-aware than Jackson Hinkle. But I think it's fake. When I watched this video, I started to get more certain that it was fake.
Gotcha. Also, just to address this, where'd it go? Yeah, just to address this. No, we're not doing the same thing as Tucker. I don't have an opinion on the fucking M&Ms or their design. I could not give less of a fuck. Tucker's doing segments because he's genuinely concerned about this. This is genuinely a sign of like societal decline or woke culture or whatever. We're just making fun of him for talking about it in the first place. I don't have a fucking opinion on the M&Ms and their design. They could have any design. They could be wearing any outfit. They could be sexualized to whatever extent or not at all. And I literally would not have an opinion. Like I said, M&Ms are just chocolate. They're a very overrated candy. I don't give a fuck how they're depicted in the advertisements.
Well, Gavin, it's actually a very important representation issue here, and we need to talk about how it's going to impact the discourse. No, I'm kidding.
Anyway, Nick Adams, who may or may not be satirical. If anyone knows in chat, let me know. I can honestly never tell. Either way, hilarious account. Definitely recommend you guys follow it. I am done with M&Ms. Not one M&M will pass my lips until Mars issues a formal apology and releases an all-male package of M&Ms to demonstrate their commitment to gender equality. These female M&Ms are a slap in the face to men everywhere. We must band together and boycott. And, you know, I'm with Nick. I want fucking camouflage-colored M&Ms that taste like dirt and grass. My male ego will not be satisfied until I see that.
Have you heard him talk, though?
No, I haven't. We're about to play the clip.
Real alpha male energy.
G'day guys, Nick Adams here. I want to speak about M&Ms. I want to speak about Mars, the company behind M&Ms. M&Ms have just released feminist M&Ms. Yes, you heard me right. Feminist M&Ms. Egregious sexism of the worst and most conceivable kind. It is outrageous, it is disgusting, and it must not stand. That is why I am calling for a complete and total boycott of all things Mars, and particularly M&Ms. It will not stand. Let me say this loudly, let me say this clearly, let me say this unambiguously. Any male that buys a packet of M&Ms from today forward must hand in their man card, because they are a soft, woke, beta, male feminist who has serious problems. Until M&Ms rectify this grave wrong by giving us all male M&Ms, this boycott will remain. We will not stand for this at all. M&Ms.
This has to be satire.
That's what I
This
said. After you
has
watch
to
the
be
video,
satire.
you won't believe that it's real anymore. Like, that gave it away. But I love it. I love the commitment to the bit. I love how hilarious it is. That guy, freaking hilarious. A genius comedic actor right there. I swear to God. And I love his Outback voice, right? Like he's about to go throw a couple shrimp on the barbie. I know you're not supposed to make fun of people's accents, but pretty funny.
Hey, Australians' accents are one of the few we can make fun of as white people, because most Australians are white themselves. So I think
Hey,
I
guys
think
were
you're
just
fair.
the swashbuckling leftovers that nobody wanted in England anymore. So we dumped your asses over and fucking same thing over in America too. We were just the fucking, it's like anybody that had to get the boot from England.
Yeah, we can make fun of like Southern accents, Australian accents, Irish and Scottish accents, all that stuff. So yeah, don't feel bad about that. Also, I too am a big fan of peanut M&Ms. Like I said, regular M&Ms, they're overrated. They're literally just chocolate. I don't understand the appeal. I don't understand the hype. But peanut M&Ms, pretty good. Same with pretzel M&Ms. Pretzel M&Ms, I will eat those motherfuckers, despite the child labor.
The pretzel M&Ms are also pretty fire, but yeah, I also
Yeah.
enjoy a good peanut M&M every once in a while, especially if you get those resealable Costco-sized bags. Man,
Mm.
when I was in high school, I had this fucked up problem because I only 1 year out of all the 4 years in high school that I used my locker, but the 1 year I did, I just turned it into like a little candy emporium, right? So I had like a big old fucking Costco bag of Twizzlers, of peanut M&Ms, of like those like fucking gummy crawlers, not the actual like gummy worms, but like the crawlery one. Anyway, an aside.
Yeah, no, the peanut ones are pretty good for sure. And we did get a couple super chats. Shout out to you as always, Alex. Really appreciate the donation. Off topic, but did you hear about RBN smearing you and Kyle? Yep, Already talked about it. Appreciate the super chat though, bro.
Yep. We hate Malcolm X because Malcolm X is actually just Jimmy Dore. That was some real mental gymnastics right there. I can't believe that shit. LOL.
Yeah, shout out to you, Alex. And also thanks for the $2. Boomers think Tucker is anti-establishment. Anyone that thinks Tucker is anti-establishment is a goddamn fucking moron. He literally has the biggest show on cable news. How is someone with the largest platform on cable fucking news, Fox News, how are they anti-establishment? That is a direct contradiction. That's not possible definitionally.
Yeah, it's always really disappointing when you see people who otherwise make some like decent points and they'll be like, well, Tucker's attractive to people because he's anti-establishment. I'm like, no, he's not. He literally peddles exactly what the establishment wants people to be distracted with. Bullshit culture wars that have nothing to do with their actual lives, and then being mad at random Democrats. Like that's what his whole show is, right?
Yeah, and just because he's right about a few things, like every once in a while he'll advocate for the freedom of Julian Assange. It's like, yeah, every commentator is right about something. I mean, you can find some Rachel Maddow opinions that are based. You can find some opinions of literally anyone. Piers Morgan, like fill in the blank. Find some establishment commentator. I promise you, 20 to 30% of their opinions are correct. That doesn't make them anti-establishment. And, you know, if you agree with Tucker Carlson's opinions and you like his commentary, that's fine. You have every right to feel that way. Just don't delude yourself into thinking that you're somehow anti-establishment or that his commentary is somehow anti-establishment. Like I said, he literally has the biggest platform on Fox News, cable fucking news. It doesn't get any more establishment than that. Either way, appreciate the super chat, Alex.
Do people really care about this? No, I don't think most people really care about it. It is supposed to just be a distraction issue. It's an easy cultural war button. Oh, I know. Like once you have a show that's massive and particularly as massive as Tucker Carlson, he just knows what is like red meat to his audience, right? Like how do we get them angry that like the woke liberals are coming for something else in your life? Like that's a big part of his formula, right? Drum up that hysteria, that anger and outrage, and send it nowhere, right? It's just directionless frustration for people in their own homes. But while they're watching for an hour, they feel like they're resisting together. Okay, that's his whole model. And so he just needed some more red meat for his audience.
100%. Yeah, it's 100% a manufactured distraction, Brian. No one actually cares about this, apparently, except for Tucker Carlson. And yeah, the whole point is to, like you said, Zach, fire up all of these boomer listeners who are watching Tucker Carlson. And, you know, it's just in order to make them mad. The whole Fox News itself, Tucker Carlson in particular, is an outrage machine. The entire business model is just making people mad and making people feel like their culture is under attack by this amorphous blob of wokeness, which is taking the stilettos off the green M&Ms or whatever. But yeah, it's 100% a manufactured culture war issue. No one actually cares about this. No one would have even fucking noticed the changes made to the characters if it weren't for idiots like Tucker Carlson pointing it out and acting like it's a bigger deal than it is. But thank you for the $4.99, Brian. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to you, Brian, and shout out to you, Kelly. Slightly irrelevant, but did you both see/hear P. Harry's new cringe as fuck book? Good lord, did he stoop to the gutter level petty? Oh yeah, Jesus Christ. I did read a little bit about that when I was like getting my daily tabloid fix. Yeah,
is this the one where he admitted to killing like 25 Afghanis?
Yeah, he admitted to killing 25 Afghanis, but he also wrapped it in a bunch of other shit, like him talking about going to Courtney Cox's house and like tripping mushrooms with her, and just like a bunch of like weird like celebrity gossip or whatever to try and make money because he's kind of like, I don't know, just drum up media attention for himself. It was like filled with like just like stupid like tabloid kind of bullshit. I don't know, which I think is mostly what she was referring to. But yeah, he did fess to, because he was a soldier or like in the military. So I mean, obviously those guys, pretty usually they went there to fucking kill people. So
yeah, I haven't been paying much attention just because I cannot get myself to care about anything related to the royal family. But what I have heard is that he apparently talked about how he murdered 25 Afghanis while participating in the war, right? That's what happened?
Oh yeah, no, that was definitely in the book too. Yeah, I mean, and a lot of people have divided feelings about that because it's like, look, he's being honest about what the fuck he did. Like, we did tell a bunch of people to go over there and do that, and it is the experience that I'm sure a lot of, people who were in the military have and have PTSD. But it is also, it's just like, bro, you were a royal and you didn't have to do this, and what did you get out of it? You just went over there and shot 25 fucking brown people that never really did anything to you. Like, what the fuck? So yeah,
imagine having a body count of 25 and just going about your life selling fucking shitty tabloid books and stuff. That's crazy.
Yeah, and I get it. Like, I don't want to sound callous to anybody who's like a veteran in our audience that, you know, probably was asked to do some horrible fucking shit for our lying, stealing, cheating government. But if you're born with the fucking silver spoon in your mouth and you go out there and make that fucking choice on your own to just be vile and do that,
Right.
then I think that says a lot about your character that you shouldn't brag about.
Absolutely. And do you know if he was bragging about it, or was he saying like, you know, I have a lot of remorse and I think about this every day? I don't know.
I didn't read it, so I don't know. And everybody's had their own different kind of analysis of it. I think that depending on who you are and what kind of empathy you give that situation, your takeaway would probably be a little bit different. What I meant bragging about it was just publishing about it in your fucking book when you don't really need money. Like, this is just for your own accolades. You want to go on talk shows, talk about yourself, because you haven't done enough of that being a prince of a fucking country in the year 2023. I mean, it's just like, I also fucking hate the Royals, but I mentioned this on the show all the time. I read The Guardian as my like paper of record, and I always keep it on the international version. So I get a bunch of fucking shit about the Royals in there that's based in the UK, and they actually write about that a lot.
Oh yeah, it's inescapable if you're reading UK media. But I especially now that the Queen's dead, I'm like, you're really still asking us to care about these people? Come on, let's
Can I tell you
move
one
on as a
crazy
society.
Queen fact really quick, Gavin? I was watching a clip yesterday where she was meeting Marilyn Monroe, and they were the same age.
I did see that actually. That's wild.
Fucking, that's how old that lady was. Like, that's
Yeah.
it's hard for me to understand age at that level because it's just like she was like 90 years old. She lived through so much shit. It's almost hard to conceive living through that much shit because most of us never get to. But she had like round the clock care and all of her meals like fucking made for her and nothing but endless pampering. So of course she lived for fucking ever. But anyway,
Yeah, it's kind of like how we were just talking about Noam Chomsky, like being a young man during World War II and stuff. It's just crazy to think about.
it was like 12 in 1940. In 1945 he was like 17. Like, what?
Yeah, wild stuff. Anyway, thank you, Kelly. Always appreciate seeing you in the chat and really appreciate your super chat. Also, shout out to you, Alex, once again for the $5. As an Australian citizen, my dad is an Aussie. I apologize for Nick Adams. LOL. Well, if this guy is satire, which I think he is, come on. If not, that's just insane. Again, no one has definitively told us whether or not he is. It says best-selling author endorsed by President Trump, and I guess he's been on. Is this guy not satire? It looks like he's been on Fox News and shit.
Dude, no, Gavin. If he's not satire, he does, like we were talking. I think Chad said this. Like, if he's not a parody account, it's just because he doesn't know it, man. This is the living, breathing, walking best satire. Like, you can't get closer to satire than this. This man is flying so close to the sun that I think he might actually believe it. But that doesn't change the fact that is 100% like just golden parody.
Bro, he's legit. He's an Australian-born American conservative political commentator. He came to attention when Donald Trump made favorable comments and tweets about his work. And yeah, he's been on Fox News a bunch of times. So no, it's not an act. This guy, I mean,
I refuse to believe
insane.
it. This is my cornucopia, Gavin. This guy's a parody account. I will hear nothing else of it. This is my Fruit of the Loom cornucopia.
Oh my God, that's so insane. Apparently he denounced multiculturalism. Great guy.
He was given a 6-month suspension from the Liberal Party of Australia. LOL.
That's unhinged. That's fucking crazy. I know he's also one of those guys that's super into Hooters. Like there was a fake satire tweet going around saying that like Hooters is closing down because millennials don't like boobs.
That was
or
actually
whatever.
real, but it was from a few years ago.
Really?
They weren't shutting down. They're just like rebranding. And then their rebrand is still like a lot about boobs.
Anyway, he was like incensed about it because he's like, Hooters is one of the last places in America where men can be men and all this crap. Imagine going to a Hooters like out of your own volition.
So I had a homie in high school, one of my pretty good friends in high school. She got this job at a place that wasn't Hooters. I think it was called like Beaver Tap or something like that, disgusting. And I was like, I remember being like, good on you, dog. And she was like, oh yeah, I make like $50 an hour. And I was like, well, it's fucking good money for being 18 years old and a senior in high school. Like, fuck, like, yeah, I only work like 6 hours a week. I just do like 3 hours on Friday and 3 hours on Saturday. I'm like, well, fuck, that's a great way to make a living. Like, you're a pretty woman, like, fine, do that. But yeah, I never went and visited her at work because I was like, that would be fucking weird. But then one time I was
uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, like, I get it, like, make people's money, but I don't want to be around the kind of patrons that go into a place like that. And the one time I went into a place that was like that was years ago. I think 8 years ago at this point. So how old was I 8 years ago? Like 17, 16, 17. And I went into that Twin Peaks in Olathe because I couldn't, there was nowhere to watch the World Cup that wasn't like full up. And then finally I was like, nobody at this place will be fucking watching the World Cup. So then I went in and it was this like, you know, woman that was very friendly, and I got like pretzel sticks and watched the US World Cup game. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't judge anyone for going to them. Like, if you want to go, you know, have your hot wings served to you by some chick in a scantily clad top, like, go for it, bro. I just personally would feel a little bit awkward. But maybe that's because I'm an estrogen-riddled soy boy beta.
It's kind of like the strip club. Like, I mean, it's like 2023, so I don't know why you would really go to a strip club, right? Like, anybody could just Google anything you want, and I guarantee you got better variety than you do at like fucking Grand Boulevard in Kansas City, right? But that doesn't stop people from going in there, and then you can't drink liquor in there.
Really?
You have to drink. Yeah, if it's a fully
In a
nude
strip club?
if it's a totally nude strip club in America, they have to
What?
serve you juice. You can't drink liquor in there. So everybody gets fucked up outside. And I actually know some people at SOT, which is right next to a strip club, and they're like, oh yeah, all night people will come in, get fucked up at SOT, and then go walk over to the strip club because you can only drink juice in there.
Aren't most strip clubs not even fully nude though? Aren't most of them like just topless or something?
They're topless, so they can still serve booze. But if they're fully nude,
Right.
like if you take off the bottoms, because I mean, and it makes sense, it would get really unsafe in there. You could a lot of sexual assault situations that could emerge and stuff like that. But anyway, it's just a lot. Which I mean, all of it is like so antiquated. It's like you feel like it's like the 1800s, like if you're like looking for a strip club or something. But anyway.
Yeah, not my thing. No offense if it is yours. I'm not judging you, but yeah. Anyway, and also shout out once again, Alex Glenn thinks Tucker is dangerous. LOL. Yeah. Can't say I sign off on that take.
Yeah, I don't think he's dangerous, but for maybe a different reason than maybe we think for different reasons. Like I think he's a fucking plague, and that's dangerous.
And shout out to you, Kevin Maxwell Smith, for the $5. Really appreciate that, Kevin. So telling how much Tucker loves to talk about personified candy cartoon genders rather than the child slavery operations in real life. And yeah, thanks for reminding us to, you know, go back to that, because I did want to briefly discuss this. It's a real issue. It's been happening. I remember hearing about this as a kid, like my mom telling me about this, and I was like, wait, seriously? But it's true, guys. Mars, Nestle, Hershey all use child slavery to produce the candy that we all eat, and no one really thinks much of it or seemingly cares, which is pretty crazy. And it's not just chocolate. I also remember hearing about how like a lot of the tomatoes that are used in like Taco Bell and other mainstream fast food franchises, you know, they'll use tomatoes that are grown in large part by slave labor in countries like Africa and South America, just because it's the cheapest option. And again, no one really thinks much of it. We all act like we're so far beyond slavery. We all act like we're so much more evolved as a society because, you know, we got rid of slavery here domestically. But the reality of the situation is, whether we're talking about the minerals that power our laptops, or the exploited workers that sew our clothes, or the child slaves that, you know, produce the chocolate in our Hershey bars, it's still very much a part of our consumption economy.
Yeah, absolutely. So shout out to you, Kevin, and shout out to
the slaves for making that chocolate.
no, I was not going to say that, Gavin. Jesus Christ. There's a line. Read the room, damn it. Gavin thinks he's on One America News Network. Jesus Christ. Yeah, I'm gonna have to reprimand him. He's gonna get booted for the next 6 months. He'll just have to wear the cone of shame. Jesus Christ. We're talking about lives here, Gavin. Wow, this man knows no shame. Just after the quick joke, huh? No, I'm just kidding. Shout out to you, Kevin Smith, the real Kevin Smith. And Alex talking to people. My mom hates P. Harry, but hate watches them. I had to get her off watching their show by showing her Donnie Darko, which she hated.
That's funny. I remember one time I had like a girlfriend in high school that for whatever reason I decided to show Donnie Darko to, and she was just like completely unamused. She was like, why did we watch that? Like, well, apparently she did not appreciate it, but and neither did your mom, Alex. It's not a movie for everyone. Although I will say, one time I did watch Donnie Darko with my mom, and she did really like it. She was like immensely moved by it. You know, I mean, it's a very, you know, kind of abstract movie. It's hard to understand on a plot level for a lot of people, myself included. The first couple times you watch it, you're like, what the fuck just happened? But it is a very moving film. It's one of the only films that actually makes me cry when I watch it, the end specifically.
Yeah, I always read it more as a comedy, but it takes different strokes for different.
Oh, it is funny.
I'm
It's
kidding.
hilarious.
Oh, I was just making.
There's a lot of like genuinely hilarious moments in that film. But it's also quite sad, quite emotional. Either way, shout out to you, Alex. Really appreciate it. And yeah, a lot of people do hate Harry and Meghan Markle. I guess because they left the royal family and are talking shit on them now. And some people think that they're like profiting off of the slanderous comments about the other royals and saying that they're racist or something. I don't have a stake
Oh,
in
the
that
other
fight. I don't
royals
know
are
what's
they're
going-
all racist.
I don't doubt it at all. Yeah, I don't doubt it. But
Queen was racist as fucking shit,
Yeah.
dude. That's another thing that people don't talk about. That queen, fucking racist.
plus they got the Epstein associate, Prince Andrew,
Andrew.
right? Yeah. Imagine simping for those people. Anyway, shout out to you, Alex. Really appreciate it. And yeah, glad you're on that Donnie Darko kick, man. It's one of my favorite movies. I need to rewatch Donnie Darko. And it really is a bummer that Richard Kelly can't find much work these days. Such a talented guy. But yeah, shout out to you, Alex.
Tucker is a CIA op. Alan McLeod wrote about it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, CIA op. I mean, look, I don't know about that. I mean, it says Alan McLeod reveals populist firebrand went on multiple trips to like Nicaragua or something. Is that what it says right here? CIA trips to Nicaragua as a freedom fighter with the Contras. So yeah, that's fucking sketchy. And I'm not here to defend Tucker Carlson. I'm looking at the piece that
He also tried to join the CIA. Like before he got into broadcasting, he applied to join the CIA. He's talked about that on his show because I remember Tulsi Gabbard asked him about it. She was like, you're a big critic of the deep state, but at one point in your life, you wanted to join the deep state. And he was like, oh yeah, back in the day before I, got woke or what, before I learned what was going on in the deep state, I did want to be a part of it because I thought they were just all like James Bond and stuff like that. So it is true that he did literally apply to join the CIA at one point in his life. The extent to which he currently is a CIA op, I don't know about that. But given his commentary on geopolitical affairs, such as what's been going on in Brazil, I would not doubt it. Did you hear his trash commentary about Lula?
Oh God, I didn't, but I can already imagine what it was. I mean, he was a big simp for Bolsonaro, so I mean,
Yep.
of course, he's not going to have a great take on Lula. And yeah, I mean, the guy. I mean, like we said it time and time again. He has the most popular news show in America. It's owned by the fucking Murdoch family, whatever, right? Of course, he's doing talking points that are going to benefit the fucking powers that be. You can't get away from that if that's your power structure. In the same way that you guys never fall for it, and I'm talking like, or people never fall for MSNBC as being like the fucking radical truth tellers. Like, you'd have to be just as dumb to think that Tucker Carlson was somehow speaking truth on his program, because we all know they will pull the plug on your ass the second that you start to really challenge power. Jesse Ventura lost his whole fucking show because he wouldn't say that he, supported the war in Iraq. So
absolutely. And let's take a look at this quick clip from a recent Tucker Carlson Tonight episode where he did pro-Bolsonaro propaganda in wake of the coup attempt.
Thanks to what was very clearly a rigged election, a convicted criminal called Lula da Silva is now the president of the most important country in South America.
And by the way, his good friend of the show, Glenn Greenwald, literally exposed the fact that that's not true, that Lula is not a criminal and that the charges against him were fraudulent. So it's pretty funny that, his good friend of the show, Glenn Greenwald, accurately exposed the truth about that, and he's still out here repeating those lies.
yeah, and on top of that, as we pointed out and documented, if you want to look at the actual electioneering and the trying to sway the election using illegal methodology, closing down major highways
Right.
in Lula areas was explicitly done by the Bolsonaro administration, and still wasn't enough to cheat his way to victory. So if there was cheating, we can demonstrate that it occurred on the side of Bolsonaro. It would have only extended Lula's lead. And he's also, convicted criminal trial, also one of the most popular Brazilian politicians ever, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
And he was
beloved
exonerated.
figure.
He's literally not a criminal. He was fucking exonerated. Anyway, this is insane.
Thanks to what was very clearly a rigged election, a convicted criminal called Lula da Silva is now the president of the most important country in South America. Millions of people in Brazil understand exactly what happened. They know that their democracy has been hijacked, possibly forever. But there's not much they can do about that. Lula may be a criminal, in fact he is, but he has the full support of both the Biden administration and the Chinese government. So yesterday, in frustration, a group of Brazilian protesters swarmed their legislature.
Just absolutely disgraceful, shameful lies. And yeah, just because Biden put out a statement being like, yeah, we should probably respect the results of this election and maybe, we should condemn these people storming the fucking Capitol buildings based on conspiracy theories. That does not mean that Lula is like a staunch ally of Joe Biden or whatever. Ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, shout out to you, Uno, for the super chat, and shout out to you, JStore WNJL. Tucker's DL getting paid to drum up controversy. I'm not sure what you mean by DL, but I agree. He's trying to drum up M&M controversy.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean by DL either. Let us know, Jeswar.
My mind just is stuck on driver's license, which is wrong.
Or I was thinking down low, like keep it on the DL, keep it on the down low. Tucker's down low getting paid. Maybe that's what you're saying, to drum up M&M controversy. I mean, yeah, he's getting paid to, obviously everything he says he's getting paid to say. But yeah, it's pretty ridiculous how much he's leaning into these nonsense culture war issues, such as the M&Ms are too feminist, the woke M&Ms, like LOL. Anyway, shout out to you for the $2.
He's also the embodiment of I don't know if you guys ever saw the movie School Ties. Speaking of Brendan Fraser, he's been in the news a lot, right? One of the early roles for Brendan Fraser, but another early role for Matt Damon. And I feel like Tucker Carlson is just like the grown-up version of the shithead Matt Damon character in School Ties, like the racist, prejudiced, cheating, fuckhead kid.
I've never seen that movie.
Oh, you never seen School Ties? You would like it. Brendan Fraser, Matt Damon, like when they were both like 18, 19 years old, they really both show a lot of promise. Matt Damon's good in it, but he plays a fuckhead kid. Anyway, and it just reminds me of that whole atmosphere. Like Tucker Carlson is so upper northeast private school, like aristocracy energy, like that New England aristocracy, guys. If you ever walk around it, it's uncomfy, but Tucker just emanates that. So the fact that he's been able to captivate the most working class and the most impoverished members of this country, it just shows that it's all a ruse. It's all a grift. It's just like Donald Trump. Like Donald Trump has never walked a fucking, walked in any of these people's shoes, but he rhetorically was able to relate to them. And they were so desperate to have somebody with the platform that, spoke to their, impulses or whatever, fed them their fucking shit. Anyway, it's interesting.
Yeah, shout out to you, Jeswar. Really appreciate that. And thanks, Alex. You guys should go to Hooters and wear like feminist shirts. That would be interesting. I doubt anyone would notice or care. But also, I like maybe if the food was better, but the food just doesn't really seem like my kind of thing. It just seems like Cisco garbage. Here's some nasty ass hot wings and mozzarella sticks or whatever. Like if I want some mozzarella sticks and shit like that, I'll just go to Sonic. I don't need to go to Hooters and sit down and eat it. But I'm just not really the kind of guy that would be found in such an establishment, even regardless of the fucking chicks and bras or whatever they're wearing. Like, I'm just not a big sports bar kind of guy.
Yeah. The other thing is that I feel like that only people that would like feel like that would just like, I feel like it might be a little rude to like the women that are working there. And I don't have any beef with them at all. Like, I don't give a fuck how you make your money and you're not hurting anybody. And yeah, I'm critical of the like capitalist pigs and their fucking, patriarchal hierarchy that like creates the demand for this sort of thing. But at the end of the day, I think it's harmless and I don't give a fuck. So I'm not here to like make anybody feel bad about themselves, even though that alpha male guy is cringy. And obviously like the idea of Hooters is a little cringy. Like it's really, it's not that problematic to me, right? As long as, the worker exploitation element is what's problematic for me about it, but that's capitalist critique and not just
right,
a singular critique of Hooters. But anyway, I get the point you're making, Alex. It would be funny to see Gavin and I uncomfortably eat bad chicken wings.
And yeah, I don't have any problem with people that go to Hooters. I just personally think it would be awkward. Like, hey, here's $5. I don't know. Anyway, shout out to you, Alex. Also, someone asking about fuck, never mind. I can't find it. Someone was asking if I preferred about Donnie Darko, the original version or the director's cut. Definitely the original version.
To say the same thing. The director's cut kind of fucks it up.
I have no idea what they were thinking with the director's cut. It's one of the most inexplicable director's cuts out there, which actually is not oftentimes, but there's a lot of cases where the director's cut is actually worse than the original version for whatever reason. Not always. There's some definite exceptions to that, but Donnie Darko's one where it was like, bro, you should have just left it alone. I don't know what the fuck you were thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it looks like we got another super chat from
Damn.
Hooters with brunette girl. Oh, Alex, outing yourself.
Someone call the
Geez.
horny police, bro.
Yeah, geez. I think that's just called all Hooters. I think that you know, I don't think they have a prejudice. But anyway, shout out to you, Alex.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Really appreciate the $5. And one more from Alex. Really appreciate your generosity today, Alex. Yeah, his dad said that he should do journalism because journalism is easy. You're talking about Tucker? I imagine you're talking about Tucker, and I wouldn't even call him a journalist. I mean, he's a commentator. He reads off a teleprompter that other people write for him. And I guess he occasionally interviews people, which is journalism. So sure. But yeah, the form of journalism that he engages in, definitely very easy.
Yeah, and it's fact and funny actually, like on the ground journalists, they love to roast TV journalists as being not real journalists because it's very different than the like being in the gutter and filing like, you know, FOIAs and, you know, calling people all day and like getting in the weeds and like going to like, you know, city meetings and interviewing people afterwards and being told to fuck off and, you know, all kinds of shit. It's very different. That's why Gavin and I don't ever call ourselves journalists. I know people have like a real hard on for calling podcasting journalism right now because they think it adds like credence or clout to whatever mission they're doing. But for us here, I mean, I like Gavin and I are both intimately aware with what like a real like fucking cranking out pieces journalist looks like, and I don't think that what Tucker does or what we do or what most people who are in our realm do would necessarily qualify as journalists. I mean, all the way up the chain, people are reading other people's writing, other journalists' work. You know, so more what you're doing is providing your content, your a commentary and perspective, which is valuable. And I do it for a living. I'm not demeaning it at all. I think it does play a unique role because most people aren't going to search out what those journalists are writing about unless there's somebody that they trust that's curated it already, because we live in a fucking swamp of massive amounts of information and sometimes it's too fucking much to catch all of it. So we try and curate the news. In fact, Tyrell Ventura was the one that used the term news curator to best describe what he felt like he did when he was hosting watching the Hawks, right? So he was interviewing people, he was giving his monologues that, you know, he was writing, but like most of the time he was basing it off of like another news story that a journalist had spent, you know, weeks on. So I thought that was a really like fair way of analyzing what we do without like undermining it.
Absolutely. And I got to pee real quick. I'll be right back. But shout out to you, Nasser, for the $5.
Shout out to you, Nasser. While Gavin's taking the piss, I'll respond to your chat. All monarchs deserve the Romanov treatment. LOL. Rest in peace, Lenin. Even though people were racist to Markle, who doesn't even look black, that's like advanced racism. Well, yeah, look, I mean, colorism exists all over the world, right? And it's a super nefarious issue. We focus on America's like super entrenched anti-black racism because it goes back to, you know, transatlantic slave trade, and even before that, you know, we had the brutal you know, essentially like the genocide, the extermination of the indigenous population here in America, the Native Americans, you know, so but colorism exists all over the world, right? So if you look at England, anything that, or, you know, from England all the way to like India or the Philippines or China or wherever, right? In Korea, people with fairer skin, right? There's this like ideology that was like really pushed on people, that people with fairer skin were like, that was the beauty standard, right? And that exists in like all kinds of cultures, right? Like I was having a good conversation with my girlfriend about that because she's Filipino and her mom will get on her and be like, you look too dark, like blah blah blah. So even like, you know, it exists like all across the board. So people who are racist in the way that, you know, the Queen of England was racist, like their line on like the colorism scale is like anybody who is darker than like a British person is going to be considered like just beneath them. But it is true that it follows like a caste system to them. So like, you know, how dark your skin is like how like, you know, worthwhile you are anyway. It's a really nefarious thing, but it does take back its roots in places like England, which is why, you know, even though they're not black, like people are still like like irreprehensibly racist to them or whatever. And in America, right, like you know, colorism exists as well, and it's manifests in its different form. But in America, we're so obsessed with like anti-blackness and anti-black racism that you might think that in other countries it's like that as well, where as in other countries it's like any kind of like tonality or difference is you know, enough for intense racial prejudice. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And shout out to you, Nasser Fraud. Really appreciate the $5. She did take a principled stand against South Africa and Ian Smith. I don't know what that's in reference to, but I thought it was worth responding to.
Is that in relation to Meghan Markle, or are you talking about the Queen? Because I I'm not entirely sure what you're referencing here, Kelly, because like I mean Meghan Markle I think has been the victim of like massive amounts of racist attacks. I think that's undeniable. But I don't. But I think that I was just trying to explain because the question was asked in a way as like why are people being racist to this woman if she doesn't even look black, and I was trying to give like a Reader's Digest version of the history of colorism and how it's racism in all forms, and but anyway, so if you
mean
follow up on that.
Yeah, do you mean a principled stand against apartheid South Africa? Maybe that's what he's referencing. Like the Queen was like anti-apartheid or something. Either way.
Oh yeah, that could be what you're referencing, and I'm not specifically familiar with that. So I mean, if she did one good thing, that's tight. But there was a lot of racism that was going on in India beyond that. That she was definitely a part of, and also just domestically, like with the treating people with darker tones as like inferior and all that jazz. I mean, from the rhetoric was not great.
Yeah. Either way, shout out to you, Kelly. Always appreciate hearing from you, man. And thank you, Tool Druid, for that $9.99. Really appreciate that. Tucker's best moment was when his show Crossfire literally ended the day after Jon Stewart tore him a new one, and he's never worn his signature bow tie again after that infamous day. Yeah, that's one of the most legendary cable news clips of all time. Truly hilarious. If you guys haven't seen that, make sure you Google that and watch it. Truly legendary performance by Jon Stewart.
The balls of steel on Jon Stewart to just walk onto that show and just be like, I came on here to tell you to please stop it, to stop this. It's hurting people. And he's just like looking him in the face live on air, telling them that their show is horrible, that they should stop doing it, and that like, please put it in. And then, yeah, anyway, fucking hilarious. I love nothing. I love Jon Stewart to death, even though sometimes he makes me cry. It's kind of like put him in the same category as Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, I know, right? Shout out to you, Tool Druid. Really do appreciate the $9.99. And thank you so much, Alex, for the $2. Did you hear about the new low budget horror out? I'm guessing you're talking about Skinamarink. That's the low budget horror film that I've heard of that's people are talking about that's out right now. So let me know, Alex, if you're talking about Skinamarink. Which is a funny name, but I have heard it's really good, really creepy, and super low budget. I think it's playing at a theater nearby here in New Orleans. So I was planning on checking that out in the near future. And yeah, you say, yes, that is what you're talking about. So yeah, I'm definitely planning on checking that out. I'm a huge fan of horror. So really excited to see that.
Yeah, they're playing it at the Screenland as well, which I'm excited about. They're doing a bunch of like horror shit this month for some reason. So they're doing like, depending on when you get back, they're doing like X and Pearl and shit like that. Anyway.
Oh shit.
Yeah, double feature, which I think would be tight, but
can't wait
anyway.
for the next one in that trilogy.
Yeah, and they're also showing that Winnie the Pooh slasher movie that's also looks very low budget. Speaking of low budget horror movies.
What was that, Blood and Honey or some shit?
Yeah, Blood and Honey. So anyway, I
wonder if that's any good at all, or if it's just total garbage.
Looks like trash when I was looking at the trailer for it. But.
Either way, really appreciate it, Alex. Always appreciate the movie-related questions.
The Screenland in Theater 4 is doing an entire day's worth of showing the extended edition Lord of the Rings one after the other after the other. I'm like, I don't know who could bear that, but it's like 15 hours.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I like Lord of the Rings as much as the next man, but I'm not going to watch the fucking extended versions back to back to back, especially in the smaller theater. They should at least be playing it in the big screen, right?
I just don't think they can sacrifice that much because not many people are going to go to it.
Yeah. If I was going to do a Lord of the Rings marathon, I'd much rather be in the comfort of my own home with a fat bong bowl and, you know, the ability to get up and pee and make snacks and stuff like that. I really wouldn't want to go to a theater to do that. But, you know, shout out to the Lord of the Rings fans. I know there's a lot of them out there.
Yep. Shouts out to all of you.
Remember when everyone was freaking out about the new Lord of the Rings Amazon show because there was like black elves in it or whatever?
Yeah, dude, the fantasy sci-fi fandom universe is actually like, honestly, I don't want to paint with the broad brush because I know there's a lot of good people out there, but the cream does not rise to the top. Let's just put it that way, right? Most of them remind me of like when RLM was making like the Nerd Crew or the Nerd Cave or whatever the fuck it is. And
that was amazing.
Like a satire of it, but that's how it actually comes. Or they're like just losing their mind about like wokeness and their like favorite realm. Anyway.
Also, no need to apologize, Alex. I was just joking about the horny police. No need to apologize at all, bro.
Yeah, it's okay. We forgive you, Alex.
So I guess now that we're done with some super chats, feel free to keep them coming, guys. We'll react to everything for sure. But now that we're done addressing those super chats, do you want to move on to talk a little bit about the other massive culture war issue, Zach? Gas stoves.
I'm prepared to burn it all down for this one. No pun intended, guys. I found myself yesterday at a crossroads, right? Where I consider myself to be a good leftist, but I also consider myself to be a member of the culinary community writ large, right? And if you guys are telling me that in the state of our country in 2023, that it's a high priority to get rid of your gas stoves, I'm going to tell you to get lost, bro. You're not taking my gas stove. And obviously, this is a right-wing culture war moment. I'm not actually concerned that they're going to take away our gas stoves. But I just think it's always really interesting, like what kind of conversation gets set off, right? Like nobody's coming for your gas stoves. Like the worst thing that could happen is like in 5 or 10 years, they stop making gas stoves and then you have to go really out of your way to get one. But the reality, but there's two folds to this. So one, it's just like a non-story, right? I don't want to be dealing with fucking people being like, why is Zach indulging in right-wing talking points? But two, if you ever want to lose a fuck ton of the country, start telling them we're going to take away gas stoves next, okay? Because people like to cook their food properly, and the electric stove game is a plague on this country. It's cheap bullshit that landlords and developers will stick into your fucking apartment, and your food will never be cooked properly, okay? They want it because it's cheap. Especially, don't even get me started on the ones that are like in our apartment, Gavin. I fucking hate our stovetop. I like our apartment a lot. The Casa del Vanguard's great. I fucking hate our cheap as fuck stovetop. The flat one on the ground, it's like an electric heat pad. That's not how you don't get a proper sear on that. When I'm making onion jam, dude, do you know how closely I have to watch that because the heating imbalance is so fucked up? I would rather die at 40 and take the rest of you selfish bastards with me than never sear a perfect steak again in my entire life. I don't give a fuck. Okay. And one of the things I think about all the time when I'm like, well, I really like this place, but when we move, I'm not moving into any place that doesn't have a gas stove. So, you know what? I'm prepared. I'm prepared to have everybody exodus. I'm prepared. The Vanguard will go on hiatus. We'll battle it out in the streets, me versus the woke. But no, I just saw that today and I was like, actually, this is the first time I've been on the wrong side of the woke mob, and I will die on this hill. That the left will keep our gas stoves. You know, it's like, fuck it. We couldn't make any progress on guns. Let's go to gas stoves because that's giving like 13 kids asthma every year. Like, what the fuck? I'm sorry, but
it is stupid. It is stupid. On one hand, it's obviously over the top on the part of many conservatives and right wingers, the way that they're acting like this is, such a big issue worth melting down over. Yeah, it's a little bit cringy. It's a little bit dumb. But I do agree that of all the things to come for, really, gas stoves. Like, think about all the carcinogens that are in the food we eat and the wrappers of the food we eat. One time I read a fucked up article about how the wrappers that your fast food meals come in are actually filled with harmful carcinogens that when the food heats up in the wrapper, those chemicals then bleed into the food that you're eating. There's so many horrible chemicals and harmful carcinogenic chemicals in the products that we eat that are readily available at the grocery store that it does seem pretty stupid to go after the fucking gas stoves. But to be fair, the Consumer Product Safety Commission did forcefully deny that it was considering a ban on gas stoves. So this does seem like a pretty manufactured issue to begin with. I guess that Richard Trumka, who's one of the commissioners of said agency, suggested to Bloomberg earlier this week that a ban was on the table. But when asked about it, as I said, the CPSC forcefully denied that it was considering a ban on gas stoves, despite the fact that I guess there is some evidence positing a link between respiratory problems and gas stoves. But like I said, you can find links between all sorts of health issues and tons of the culinary products we eat here in America. I think this one is pretty low on the list of things to be concerned about, again, given the amount of carcinogens that are freely allowed unregulated in many of the products that are widely consumed and available at grocery stores and fast food restaurants, etc. However, this did, produce some absolutely hilarious responses from right-wing culture warriors like Ron DeSantis, who said, "Don't tread on Florida and don't mess with gas stoves," and posted a couple pretty funny images here.
We're actually going to get those put up behind me right now. No, I'm kidding.
Exactly. I was telling Zach he needs to buy one of these flags for his background because I have my fuck around and find out flag. Wouldn't it look perfect if Zach had one of these behind him?
Don't tread on Florida.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, I think that a lot of right wingers are overreacting to this. They're using it as an excuse to fearmonger about the authoritarian nature of the Biden administration. They're coming for your stoves and all that bullshit. But I also think that some people on the left have gone over the top in their reaction to the reaction. Here's an example of that right here. Eve Andrews saying, I just know in my heart that everyone freaking out about gas stoves is not actually a good or habitual cook. And I just don't think that's true. I mean, Zach was just talking about how, when he's making his onion jam, he prefers using a gas stove over the shitty electric ones. And even as someone that doesn't cook all that much, like I don't consider myself very talented in a culinary sense. But I mean, I cook as much as the next man. And I will say, I also prefer to use a gas stove. Growing up, my mom had a really nice gas stove that I would use whenever I was, heating up water on the pot or making eggs or veggie burgers or whatever the fuck I was making. And it was a far, far preferable experience to that of using one of those little shitty electric heating pads on the, more common, cheaper stovetop. So I don't think that it's fair to say or accurate to say that people that prefer to use gas stoves don't actually cook or don't know anything about food. I prefer to use gas stoves when I'm cooking. It's a much better experience. So I think that's fair to say as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I'm about to bring my receipts before I plow into this argument. So I got locked out of Instagram. I can't pull that shit up anymore properly. But if you look into the right corner, the upper right corner over here, this lovely spread from New Year's Day morning that I made with a fat fucking hangover. Okay, you can see that this is some fine cuisine over here. Okay, woke up at 7:45 in the morning to make this delicious spread for the crew. So I like to think that for a stay-at-home cook, know where I'm coming from on this, and it's just you're showing your ass because it's like there are two things that everybody who cooks knows, and that's that you need to learn how to cook with cast iron, and you need to learn how to cook with an open flame. So if you're showing your ass on that, like I don't know what to tell you. Open flame, go into a professional kitchen anywhere in the fucking world and find me an electric stove. I dare you. The closest thing you're gonna find is a flat grill top. Okay, for getting some hamburgers busted out. Okay. It is what it is. So don't try and come at me with lies, right? Here, I'll tell you this. Bark up this tree instead. Get rid of plastic water. Plastic water bottles are terrible for you. Read about microplastics and how much of it that you get from. Gavin, I know you like to drink out of glass water bottles because you know the science behind this too. You think about how long those things sit in hot trucks. Okay, and the little bits of plastic melts into the fucking water. You ever taste Dasani? I think it's because they just melt some of the water or melt some of the plastic into the water to give it that taste. This is like, oh my gosh, Dasani tastes like drinking plastic. Okay, but they're all bad, regardless of how well they fool you. Fiji water all the way down. It's got the same microplastics in that shit because they all sit on the same truck while it's barreling down I-70 from gas station to gas station to gas station, right?
And not just water, sodas, all kinds of stuff is in those plastic containers.
Absolutely. Why are we not talking about that? I guarantee you those microplastics causing us way more problems if you look at the environmental impact and the human health impact, and the impact on other non-living beings, right? Not just the environment that they're swimming in, but the actual health impact on the creatures. I think we'd have a lot more success with bottled water. So I'm going to punt to bottled water. You get rid of every single bottle of water, then fine, I'll start building fires in my backyard. But until then, I'm going to go team gas stove. And you know what? I hope this is the only thing I ever have to agree on with Ron DeSantis.
Yep. And of course, a big part of the reason why water or plastic water bottles are so prevalent is because of the oil industry. Plastic is made out of oil. Something that not enough people talk about, and another reason why it's actually terrible for the fucking environment. But yeah, speaking of Dasani, I actually just saw this before we went live. I thought it was pretty funny. I don't know who this guy is, but check out his reaction to taking a sip of Dasani water.
Just like, what'd you think of Javon and Drew's? Javon and Drew's ability. Just
when you
like,
hit that Dasani.
Javon and Drew's.
That guy's actually an NBA coach. He's
oh really?
He coaches the Milwaukee Bucks, I think. But I saw that clip going around too, and that's why I was thinking about Dasani water because it tastes like fucking poison.
Absolutely. And also shout out to you, Sir Switch. You're 100% correct. Even the water you get from your tap is contaminated to some degree. Yeah, absolutely true, man. Specifically, I mean, obviously Flint, Michigan still doesn't have clean water. Jackson, Mississippi still doesn't have clean water. There's massive metropolises all over the country that, regularly have to put out boil advisories for the water quality because it's essentially poisoned. So yeah, that's very fair to point out as well, Sir Switch.
Gavin not coming at this from a high horse. Let me tell you guys, this man literally will drive twice, 3 times a week to the grocery store with these big ass jugs of water that he will get from the reverse osmosis water machine, and then be like, "Oh yeah, dude, no worries. Let me just finish my cigarette. There's carcinogens in that tap water."
Oh God. You're not wrong. But shout out to you, Sir Switch. And shout out to you, Brian, for the $4.99. If conservatives will support ending the drug war, I will join them in opposing a gas stove ban. I doubt they will take that trade. Yeah, well, here at the Vanguard, we're anti-war and anti-gas stove ban. So
I was going to say I'm pro-gas stove. Speak for yourself. But I see what you did there.
Oh, yeah, I was saying we're anti-banning them. We're pro gas stove, anti gas stove ban. Either way, shout out to you, Brian. Really appreciate the $4.99, man.
Yeah, he slow rolled me with the anti gas stove, and I was like, "What a ban!" Oh, word. It's like, wait, electric is that bad for cooking though? Help me. No, it's not that bad for cooking. So here's what happens when you have. Say that you're cooking over an open flame. It's much easier to just take a look at it, see how big the flame is. It's a much more steady amount of temperature, whereas if you're cooking with electric, oftentimes the heating it doesn't heat the cooking pan as evenly as you want, right? And don't even get me started on how we should actually be talking about how non-stick skillets are the devil.
Bro.
Fuck every non-stick skillet. If you have one in your house, throw it away. And
Fuck
don't
those.
you ever in your life use a fucking metal spatula or any kind of metal cooking tool while you're doing this. That shit will give you fucking cancer. That shit will give you fucking cancer. So don't talk to me about my gas stove until you guys get rid of all that shit in your house. From the gas stove community. I don't want to see a single non-stick item within 100 fucking feet from your crib. And then on top of that, yeah, non-stick is literally poison. Like, we're all on the same page about that. You get the culinary community sign off. Nobody uses fucking non-stick. No, use a cast iron, use a chef's pan. If you're making a lot of things, use a Dutch oven or a fucking saucepan. Okay, there are rules to this game. So anyway, I just thought that was ridiculous. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? The one thing I've ever wanted that's like a rich person thing is a fucking gas stove in my kitchen, like a really nice burning fucking gas stove. I like to cook a lot. Okay. So, and then I was like, man, I'm not getting down with this. I'm taking the hard pivot. I'm about to red pill myself and every single one of the people in this community. No. So anyway, if you're just cooking regular shit at your crib, like with an electric stove, you're not going to have that difficult of a time with it. Induction cooktops, I'm just not experienced with. I have never used an induction cooktop. As I've said many times on this podcast, I'm not an aristocrat. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I also don't have an opinion on the Solisa. But I've heard some people saying that it's like a good, compromise, right? That it's better for cooking, but also healthier than the gas stove. So I'll have to do some research into that. Like I said, I don't cook enough. I don't have enough experience as a culinaire to really have much of an opinion on this. But I will say, back when I used to live at my parents' house, I did far prefer using my mom's gas stove to the, shitty electric ones that are commonly found in apartments and such.
Yeah, dude. And honestly, this goes back to a whole big thing about developers. Developers are not giving people big enough spaces for kitchens now.
Right.
And this is a big hill that I'm about to climb. But I think that, honestly, this all comes back to the same thing, right? So developers are making our apartments smaller, and they're charging more money for them, and you're getting less of a kitchen, so less people cook, right? And then you spend more of your money and time and energy procuring food from a place that does that packaging for you, okay, at a fucking hefty fee. But who wants to cook? I've lived in apartments where the kitchen was just too fucking small to cook.
I hate that shit.
Fucking small and terrible, and you can't turn around and you can't do anything.
Even ours is a little bit small.
Ours is a little small. I've added some things since you left to
Nice.
make it feel a little bigger, like just spatially and whatnot. Because I got into decorating for a couple of days, a little bit ago. Because I was like, that's my goal for fucking 2023 is I'm trying to only buy food that I cook unless it's like a restaurant where I'm like, I want to go have this as like an experience, right? Like I want to try the cuisine of this restaurant instead of just like, doing it for convenience or whatever. And so I've been really like, but I feel like a lot of people just don't have the space. They don't have the knowledge. They don't have any of these things. And it all like, I mean, it's all connected, right? These are not singular issues. The fact that you have a small crib allows, these corporations to, leech more money off of you, more funds off of you in the form of buying convenient food and all these things and cycle continue. So while we're talking about cuisine and while we're talking about all that, that's the real actual problem that we have facing us. Nobody's going to take your gas stove. I just thought that was a ridiculous thing to focus on the internet for like 18 hours. You never know what's going to take off. But the real thing is that we should be focusing on making sure that everybody has actual kitchen space and is actually able to, comfortably, nourish themselves, right? Buy food at the grocery store that's not already prepackaged because you don't have the space to turn, some onions and garlic into tomatoes into like your own spaghetti sauce. And then you have leftovers and you also have the pride and you get to perfect your own recipe. And it's, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And apparently AOC weighed in on this debate as well. She said, I do think it's funny, the absolute utter Republican meltdown where they're like, you can take my gas stove from my cold dead hands. Apparently Matt Walsh said that on Monday, you'll have to pry my gas stove from my cold dead hands. And AOC says that there is some very concerning science about some of the emissions from gas stoves. She said, especially around the cognitive development of young children, asthma, cancer, etc. Which, yeah, there might be a grain of truth in there, but I do agree, Zach, that like as long as we're allowing nonstick pans and all sorts of these other carcinogen-rich culinary products that are out there, there's no reason to be worrying about your gas stove. You should really be worrying about a lot of other products first.
And also, while we're talking about this, let's go back to all the other things that developers are ignoring that actually make your health way worse in children. Like, let's talk about them being allowed to rent out moldy apartments to people who are desperate. Yep. And collect on that and then have no consequences or fucking bug infestations and all kinds of crazy, like that shit's not good for you. Rodents, that shit's not good for you, right? Let's crack down on the people who need to be cracked down on instead of just finding an esoteric way to make the left even more fucking unpopular than we already were with some bureaucratic liberal horse shit. Okay, this is the distraction. If you ever wondered why do people hate the left when our ideas are so popular, like giving people health care and ending war and spending that domestically, because all they think about is all of this kind of shit that you guys run your mouth about, how we need to get rid of our gas stoves and shit. Like, fuck off and focus on the shit that actually matters.
Yeah. Although, to be fair, I don't think many actual lefties are out here, crusading around this issue. It was like one guy that was part of the safety commission that said something about it that inspired this whole freak out. It's not like this is actually a talking point.
Number of Twitter accounts coming out and being like, why are you guys opposed to this? This actually impacts kids, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, guys, that shit is so fucking annoying to regular people.
That is true.
Isn't lead paint.
True. Yeah, I did see that some comparisons to lead paint or like seatbelts in cars and stuff like that, which is completely ridiculous.
Whatever. Pry it from my cold dead hands. I'm a free man. This is America.
Exactly. Zach's one point of agreement with the right wing right now, and mine, to be fair. I mean, I agree this is a stupid thing to care about. But yeah, I guess that's probably a wrap for today's show, unless you had anything else you were itching to talk about, Zach.
Two quick things I wanted to shout out before we got out of here today. One, Amazon Labor Union officially certified by U.S. Labor, National Labor Relations Board. So that occurred on Wednesday night. And so that was a big deal. I can throw that up on screen for everybody to see the piece they wrote about in Vice. Always just endlessly impressed by the work that Chris Smalls is able to get up to. Always working, always moving the ball forward, and always dripped out as fuck. That's another thing that I really do like. And it was one of the things I initially really liked about Nathan Robinson was I was like, no, you can still dress nice and still have nice shit and still think that we should stop exploiting the global south and give everybody health care. Like, this isn't something that has to be like that. So anyway, nothing but love for Chris Smalls. Huge announcement. The ALU is officially certified union. This is a huge moment for the labor movement. Solidarity, everyone. Let's continue the fight for what we deserve. When we fight, we win. So just solidarity to those folks.
Hell yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, Zach. Big news, great news for ALU. Absolutely based.
And then one last thing I wanted to shout out is this week, Guantanamo Bay turned 21 years old.
Less based.
Yeah, absolutely fucking terrible. Horrible, marker. It's absolutely insane. I want to put up this tweet because I just thought it was like really devastating and something that we can like leave off on because maybe it'll stick with people a little more. So let me just read this tweet. So with Guantanamo Bay turning 21 today, and this was on the 11th, so this was 2 days ago. The fact there is a generation of adults who don't know a world without Guantanamo, right? That a geriatric wing was added to Guantanamo. That prisoners chanted "Obama, Obama" the night he won, with hope the prison would actually be closed.
Jesus
Cement
Christ.
hadn't even dried and set when the first prisoners arrived. The place that wasn't built to last has lasted and will haunt forever.
Yeah, that's dark stuff. That is dark stuff.
And what's even darker is for people who don't know this, if you're just listening and maybe you didn't realize, a lot of the people, man, that we held in Guantanamo Bay, and we didn't charge them with anything. We just, oh, you're a cab driver, and some guy that was a fucking warlord, had a bounty, and he said, yeah, this guy was definitely involved in 9/11, and then, bam, out of your taxi, bag over your head, you're tortured, you're raped, you're fucking exploited to every single fucking degree that you could imagine, sensory deprived, just horrifyingly tortured. And then people laugh at it, and people talk about how you're a fucking terrorist. You never had a trial. There was no habeas corpus. You were never even charged with a crime. And then they just left you there to rot for decades, with no rights, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, right? Because that's legally American soil, Guantanamo Bay.
At least there's a McDonald's there, though. You know what I'm saying?
It couldn't have our boys out there, suffering.
Right. Crazy stuff. But yeah, thanks everyone for tuning into the show today. Really appreciate you guys all for tuning in. Make sure to hit that like button if you haven't already. And I guess we can go ahead and shout out the Patreon community. As always, we do like to start and end all of our shows with a big shout out to the patrons. Thank you guys so much for the support on Patreon. Links in the description if you guys want to hit that up. It's probably the best way to keep us sustainable and keep the show going.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to everybody for tuning in. Comrades, Vanguardians, Super Vanguardians. You're all comrades in our heart. Just hit that like button, that subscribe button, and come and chill with us again. We will be back.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably back tomorrow, assuming there's stuff to talk about. So yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in today. Really, really appreciate it. You guys have a great Friday evening, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, don't get into too much trouble on Friday the 13th.
Yeah, peace out, guys.